Good evening and happy Sunday to anybody who may be listening. And hope you had a blessed day. I hope church went well, and I hope everything is going the way the Lord wants it to. We got to be careful with our language because there are certain words that seem to mean a lot, but perhaps mean too many things. And those kinds of words can get you in trouble, where you say that word and the person that you're speaking to or the person that you're talking to um, fills in the meaning of that word all by themselves without your help. I'll give you a few examples and will help sharpen this up a little bit. Think about all of the different ways that people complain about capitalism. Let's say, oh, capitalism this and capitalism that. Um, Now, the thing is that very often, if you pay attention to the context of the conversation and what they're actually trying to get at, they might have a valid complaint there, right? So you could say, "Oh, well, what I mean when I say capitalism is I mean that this group of venture capitalists bought a company and then immediately fired all the staff in order to pump up the stock valuations, and then." They sold off all of their stock on it, and then the company collapsed, and a bunch of people were left unemployed. Like, okay, they call that vulture capitalism, I guess. There might be a better word for that. You might just say that was greedy and short-sighted. That's a much more precise way of talking about it. You don't give this vague gesture towards this massive incomprehensible system that nobody can possibly understand. You say that was greedy and short-sighted. Those are two very concrete things that your mind can latch on to and you could actually come to understand. Um, another way that another word that I think gets thrown around a lot that isn't really all that helpful is this word toxic. I remember speaking to a fellow Catholic, speaking about a particular community, and he's like, "Yeah, sometimes that's a bit of a toxic community," and I'm like, uh, "What exactly do you mean by that?" Right? Toxic is basically just the same way of saying bad, and it could be a lot more helpful if you were to be more precise. It's a rebellious community. Okay, that tells me something that they're rebelling against appropriate authority there. You could say something like it is a community that doesn't welcome new people. It seems to just have some sort of a cliquey, closed off club, doesn't let new folks in. Okay, well, that's another sort of thing, much more precise, right? Oh, they engage in a lot of deceptive practices with new people. Okay, that's something we can talk about. None of that is captured by the word toxic. In fact, toxic would just be all sorts of uh, imprecise, bad vibes. Now, we shouldn't immediately judge people if they happen to use this kind of vocabulary because it's extremely common. You'll hear lots of people just complaining about capitalism without any kind of specification. You'll hear a lot of people complaining about toxic people or toxic communities without any kind of specification. And they've probably just picked up on the discourse around them, heard it on TV, heard somebody else say it, decided that they're going to try that word out. Um, doesn't mean necessarily that they're trying to deceive you or they're trying to communicate poorly. And so, a great thing you can do, especially if you happen to be actually speaking with a person under these circumstances, is to ask them what they mean. As with the capitalism thing, maybe they can point out to something specific, right? Some type of very greedy and short sighted business practice that's making things worse, that's not making them better. And you could ask them about it and say, "Oh, that's what you mean." And maybe you could try and helpfully sharpen their focus a little bit. Say, "Well, why don't you just say, you know, short-term acquisitions with devaluation of the company, something like that, rather than just capitalism." which is a big, vague word. You can ask them, what do you mean when you say this person is toxic? Oh, well, they're controlling and narcissistic. Okay, that's two things that I can really hook my mind around, and I know what you're talking about. So if you have the opportunity, just asking them to clarify what they mean, they might have something useful to say. It does become a bit of an issue if you ask them to clarify and they can't tell you what they mean. They can't even describe to you what they mean in the space of a minute or two. That's when things get really interesting. And especially if there's a call to action around a very vague and squishy kind of word. Um, that is a very interesting, you'll see it especially in political discourse. Uh, somebody says, toxic masculinity is a bad thing and it needs to go. And it's like, well, I have no idea what you're talking about. What do you want me to do? And since I don't know what you're talking about and you're not giving me anything useful to do, I think I'll just go ahead and ignore you. There's some complex words that we also do need to be careful with. One of them, I think, is Gnosticism, right? And Gnosticism can have multiple meanings. Sometimes people use it to mean a particular flavor of religious groups in the 2nd and 3rd centuries in the Roman Empire. That's something that people mean when they say Gnosticism. Other people mean it to say, a cult that emphasizes a certain secret knowledge that can be attained if you're around the cult long enough. Other people will use it to describe a belief that spiritual things are good and material things are evil, and therefore we need to fill in the blank, whatever silly idea follows after that. And we got at least 3 different definitions of Gnosticism right there, all of which really do correspond with the real phenomena of Gnosticism that the church certainly combated in its early decades. So I try at least my best whenever I bring up Gnosticism to try and say Gnosticism, especially the duality portions of it, the spirit matter duality. So with those certain words, very common usages might let people, one word might mean multiple things, and it might be helpful just if you're trying to communicate with somebody to specify what exactly you mean. What aspect of Gnosticism are we complaining about today? So be careful with these squishy words, toxic and capitalism being 2 great examples of it. Ask for clarification. And if you're talking about something that's too big for you to necessarily get your hands around, try and be as specific as you can. That way we don't go around confusing and miscommunicating with each other. So whenever there's a more specific word that can be used, insist on its use. And then we will spend a lot less time talking past each other and more time doing useful things. So that's what I got. Watch out for the squishy words. Looks like Mr. Ewing was first here tonight. Nope, I can't show the medal, unfortunately. Valerie's here. Hello, Valerie. Mark likes this. Good. It's, yeah. Do you think Protestants misunderstand the term heretic as it is interpreted in Catholic theology? I'm not sure. What do we mean when we talk about a heretic? We mean somebody who is obstinately denying something that's been revealed by God, right? So there's an obstinate denial and has been declared as such as obstinate as having been revealed by God. So I'm not sure what the Protestants think when they say the word heretic. I have never been Protestant. I don't know what it's like. I guess I'm an American. That's kind of 3/4 of the way there in certain regards. But yeah. Let me know if you guys have any other examples of squishy words that you think we need to. Uh, oh, he's right here.
I have lots of examples of squishy words. A bit, but I did want to touch on the heretic thing, because my understanding of heresy is that it has to be a teaching. Like it can't just be a thing that you
So
individually do or know. Like that doesn't.
sure. So we can distinguish between, let's say, a sin of heresy and a canonical crime of heresy. That's a very a
Mhm.
useful thing. The sin would be between you and God, but the
Right.
canonical crime, the authority of the church would get involved there. Neither of which are things that I recommend. But yeah, so that would be a useful distinction there. We also can distinguish between material heresy and formal heresy. Material heresy is you just happen to be incorrect about something. Maybe you don't know that you're incorrect, and maybe you never say it out loud to anybody, but it's still some kind of a thought or belief that's hanging around your head that could
Mhm.
that 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 counts as some kind of a heresy. But obviously, we're not going to police your thoughts. At least I'm not
Right.
going to. Um, and formal heresy would be uh, you've said it out loud, and you understand that the church teaches that this has been revealed by God, and you insist on uh, denying that anyway. And by the time the authority of the church is going to act publicly in this regard, it's because you've gone and done something publicly. At that point, I think you could say it would qualify as a teaching, even if the person doesn't say that they're teaching. You know, maybe
Right.
they're a politician and they say, "Well, I'm not acting as a teacher. I'm just doing public policy." Then I think something that's
Right.
evil should be public policy. So
Well. That brings up two squishy words for me. Teaching and education are both squishy words now, and they never used to be. Right. And I think that teaching in the old days was more like exemplification, and therefore, and this is why I brought it up, right, to some extent, although I didn't know it was going to go this way. Um, if you proclaim something publicly to other people, right, not just in confession or not just, around people you trust in the church, not the church as a whole, we'll say, but people you trust in the church, then you are exemplifying something or teaching something. I think
mhm,
that's actually true. And that's
mhm.
actually where the problem comes in, which is why I'm always puzzled when Protestants talk about heresies. You don't have a facility large enough to have a heresy. Like, there's no tradition, there's no hierarchy, there's no structure that can declare heresy as such in the way that, say, the Catholics and the Orthodox do. It's not a big enough thing, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, because I mean that's why you get so many splits,
yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
everybody,
exactly.
this camp thinks this and this camp thinks that, and the only thing that's keeping them together is this mutually agreed upon contract. And well, now the terms of the contract, we're just going to renegotiate the contract, and you get these buildings, and you get these buildings, and then we'll
Right.
we'll part our ways there. So teaching as exemplification, and you'll always be teaching because you'll always be. I mean, not always, but like you'll be doing something, and every act of doing something is going to be exemplifying something. And if you don't believe me, ask anybody with small children because they just suck up everything.
Yes, actually, it's funny you mentioned small children. I was watching Battlestar Galactica, the end of season 2. Very exciting. And I realized that, in fact, children are proof that God doesn't exist, because who would create such chaotic little monsters? I mean, they're clearly not fully formed, ready to go sorts of members of society, and they're not ordered enough to become ordered. And there you go. Like, evolution confirmed. It's all emergence from chaos.
Huh? And you learned all that from Battlestar Galactica, huh?
Well, a lot of extension of thought. No, I'm always I'm always joking with Sally Joe about her 5-year-old and stuff. But I'm like, yeah, I mean, sure, children, because children are all, like, they're un, and they're unbelievably unpredictable, right? Like, if you don't believe in the unknown unknowns, just be around a child for a while, and you will discover that there were things that were unknown to you until this moment that
Oh,
you could not have known.
I had the Latin Mass today, and the Latin
Yeah.
Mass crew has a lot of young families with lots of
Mm.
children, and the parents are trying to keep as best tabs on them as they can during the whole thing, which hour and 15 minutes, basically forever for a 2-year-old.
Yes.
And then once Mass lets out, it's just mass chaos.
Right.
And I saw one kid just kind of lose his mind because he was trying to open, the door to the fire extinguisher. And there were like some older kids who was like, this kid doesn't need a fire extinguisher, just kind of holding it shut. He just had a meltdown because he wasn't allowed to open the door. Just a little too. It's just like, yep, that's the end of the world for a 2-year-old right there. And then like 10 seconds later, like it never even happened, just went off and did something else.
Yeah. Yeah. If you ever want any evidence that we're not rational creatures, just be around young children and problem solved. Or teenagers. Teenagers are also ridiculous. Like they're just so swayed by their passions.
Just recall what you were like when you were a teenager. It's like
that doesn't work. I was an awesome teenager, but yeah.
Okay.
The
Well,
general
for the rest of you people out there, just remember what the dumb things you did as a teenager, and then yeah.
Yes.
Well, but to answer your complaint, Mark, it's mostly a matter of God gave them parents as well.
Yes, and if they take responsibility, parents are wonderful things, but often.
Yeah, it's a bit of a crapshoot, but it's the best system we have.
No, I
recall
agree.
last week. It's the only thing that works.
Yeah, exactly. This is terrible, but it's all that we have. Deal with it. Yeah, that's usually the problem. But yeah, I mean, I think when we talk about teaching and education, we think that teaching has to be of a certain form or a certain type. Whereas I don't think people thought about it that way in the old days. Teaching was more like anything you did publicly that other people could witness freely, we'll say. So like if you were in like a club and you were, acting out or whatever, that's a nice controlled environment. Whereas if you were out like in the public square and like children could see you, for example, right, there's still an element of teaching there. And with education, hey Emma, I'll try not
Is it
to
too
yell at Emma.
echoey if I don't have my headphones on?
You're good so far.
Yeah, you're fine. I'll try not to yell at Emma for not giving me feedback on my education video, which I made explicitly for her. Anyway, education, I think, too, is squishy because we use it to refer to a lot of different things that are either formal or informal, right? Because a lot of people will say, like, I'm self-educated, I'm an autodidact. And it's like, I mean,
it just means you read a lot of books.
There's a there, but
very squishy word.
There's a there, but the real, like, what is that? And I differentiate on Navigating Patterns, my wonderful channel, between education and training, because what a lot of people are describing when they say education, like say K through 12, is training. Like that's what they're doing. Not that they couldn't or shouldn't do, we'll say education. But I think the distinction's worth making because a lot of people just get confused in that way.
Yeah. And I think education can probably happen at different layers of the person. I don't know. It certainly has to do with cultivating, we'll say, appropriate virtues and
Right.
a helpful worldview. Wow, what kind of worldview? A sane, sound, and humble worldview, maybe. The humility in there, and those are things that you won't. Those are things that you won't just stumble into. It's like you've got to work for them.
Yes.
So I think that's part of the reason why back in the day, an educated man would first learn the building blocks, right? You would learn, what is it? Grammar, logic, rhetoric, and arithmetic. You're gonna have to help me out here, Emma.
Grammar, logic, and rhetoric for sure as the trivium, and then you'd also learn arithmetic, astronomy, music, and
Geometry.
Geometry.
Yeah. And that would be what you would get as a kid, right? And this is already happening in a context where you're being formed by your society without your knowledge or consent.
Yes.
And certain behaviors were expected. And then
Which
once you
everyone
got,
is formed by their society without their knowledge or consent.
yeah,
Right.
people would do it on
don't
purpose
realize
back then.
that. Yeah.
Hmm?
That's,
You
People
both
would-
talked over each other.
Yeah, people did it on purpose back then. It's like, no,
True.
don't do that. I don't want my son to grow up weak, you know,
Well, but
something
they-
like that.
yeah, but they knew it. And what we've lost is the understanding that it's not optional.
Yeah.
Right. There's no individual. You're not going to grow into an individual if you're just left alone or whatever. And we've had 2 generations where people have assumed that more or less.
Culturally, we're doing that one experiment that the king of Egypt did in Herodotus, where he put 2 babies on an island and had them raised without anyone talking to them so that he could find out the original language of humanity.
Oh, that's horrific. Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. You should put that on a poster. That's excellent. This is why you need to be on our Discord server all the time. Now we have to have Sally draw it up. No,
right.
well, I mean, it's a good exemplification of the pattern in the past that we've made the mistake of today, where we, I mean, people are just left alone too much, and that
Yeah.
makes you insane. And
Well,
if you think about that, well, why are people doing this? Why are people going with wokeness? They've been left alone too much. They haven't been formed. And that's the thing. Historical moments in child abuse. Yes, Dawn, I agree. Emma, with historical moments in child abuse. Emma, take it away. that would be great.
Oh, you can find a lot of stories in Greek history.
We should do little short videos
Historiography.
called historical moments in child abuse.
Can I opt out of that one, Mark? I don't want people to get the wrong idea.
No, Emma's going to start a YouTube channel for us. It's fine.
Okay.
Hmm.
She might have more important things to do.
Nah.
Yeah. No, I
Nah,
think it's
she's not
actually.
busy. Look how unbusy she is. She's knitting. I mean, come on. How busy can she be?
I am taking advantage of the last day before classes. And also, I should be working on the blanket for my baby, but I'm not.
Well, that's up to you, young lady. I'm also thinking about what was I thinking about? I got distracted with images of babies and blankets. Yeah, I'm also thinking about what a destructive thing it is for somebody to say, "I just want you to be happy."
Oh my goodness.
Now, maybe if you've like gotten to the end of a really long, like a 2-hour conversation with your son, you're exploring the various possibilities. You're showing to him, if you go this way, your life might look like this. If you go that way, your life might look like that. But at the end of this, after I've given you all this guidance, I just want you, to have a fulfilling and meaningful life. Like if it comes at the end of the guidance, it's probably fine, because you're going to leave a certain amount of that. We'll say it's a child nearing adulthood. They got to make their own decisions at a certain point.
Mhm,
But if
mhm.
that's all that you're giving them, right, I just want you to be happy. It's like, I need more than that, old man. I need a little bit of guidance.
If you have a proper definition of happiness, it could work, because a proper definition of happiness necessarily involves that guidance. Like there's the understanding that you won't be happy without receiving some sort of guidance. Like
You won't be able to achieve eudaimonia, as Aristotle says. There's another word that it's helpful just to say it in the Greek. Oh, a good spirit. Oh boy, everybody wants to have a good spirit, right?
Right.
And the standard English translation into happiness could be another one of those squishy words, right? Like Bishop Barron and Dr. Peterson, where Bishop Barron had this drilled into him in seminary. Eudaimonia is happiness. That's how we translate it into English. And then
Right.
Dr. Peterson's hearing, wait, you just want people to have positive emotion all the time? Don't you know how destructive that is?
Right.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Right.
that would be a tension point.
Well,
Well, it's interesting too, because in Aristotle, eudaimonia is distinct from it's Makaria, I think, which is also translated happiness, but it's more like luckiness, blessedness.
right.
And you can have eudaimonia. Well, later Christians especially developed the idea that you can have eudaimonia even in adverse circumstances. It does not require things to be going well for you.
And that's what grace can do for you.
Yeah.
Because Aristotle didn't have any grace.
That is definitely what grace will do for you.
Happiness is another squishy word. Love is the squishiest word we have by far.
It is.
See, I think there is one thing that draws love together, but you have to say it. So
no, I think the problem with love is that what most people are describing is care, which is has a whole different idea behind it. But I wanted to point out, so the best, probably one of the best movie quotes of all time, to be fair, but the quote that people remember from Conan the Barbarian is to crush your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of their women, is the answer to what is best in life. So the quote that people remember is the answer to what is best. Right. And so it's the same thing. Like what is best in life is sort of the, like, what is happiness? How do I make my life happy? Right. It's the same sort of thing. Although oddly, Conan, somehow the writers of Conan have it bang on way better than happiness. What is best in life? There you go. Right. He has to be told. Happiness isn't clear. Like if you tell people happiness is being able to choose which sex you are, that ain't gonna work. I'm saying that because we have the numbers to back it up. Like there's no rubric you could come up with where that is a good idea. There's no measurement. There's no, all the theses around why that would work have been proven to be not only wrong, but the opposite of correct. Like actually the opposite.
Destructively wrong, not just like slightly off course.
Not just like normal wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I think like people don't make the distinction, right? Because we think in binaries for whatever reason. See my video on binary thinking, right? And so we don't really understand that you can be wrong about something or mistaken about something and get it slightly off and whatever, it's kind of a neutral thing, or you can be wrong and like the results you're talking about are correct, but your causality is off or whatever, and that doesn't have any side effects for where you were going, basically, right? But you can also be exactly wrong, right? So the two types of wrong and one type of right. It's asymmetrical. The world.
Well, you can also be wrong, and someone can disagree with you and also be wrong.
Exactly. Right. Because there's not only one wrongness. There might be only one rightness. But there's not only one wrongness, which just means there's a lot of wrong answers in the world. And that's where people get confused, I think, because you have to be able to deal with the condition. And this is actually really important, because a lot of people say, oh, well, he was just wrong, or she's just wrong, or this political statement is just wrong. And it's like, well, but the things that are exactly wrong are also generally what we would call evil. And
you're not just wrong.
I don't care why you're evil. Maybe you're evil out of ignorance, or maybe you're evil because you, quote, have no choice, right? You've been led down that. You're still evil, and we still need to do something about that, right? We can't do nothing about that. That's where I part ways with everybody, right? Because everybody wants the binary world where it's like, oh, well, they're wrong, but they didn't know they were wrong, and so we won't do anything to them. And it's like, well, I'm a pragmatist. I really don't care if you knew you were doing wrong. Like, wrong is wrong, and we have to fix it. So you can't just blow it off and do nothing, or do nothing to the person committing the wrong, because the reason they're committing the wrong isn't relevant to whether or not they'll commit another wrong. So we've got to stop the wrongness and turn it into rightness. Two steps, maybe three. Maybe punishment is involved, but you got to separate punishment from righting the wrong, for example. You have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to disagree with that, but like, how are we going to do that on Twitter? You know,
I do. I'm still there. I'm fixing it.
yes, you're the
Little
Twitter
early.
monster.
A little at a time. What do we got here, Father? Can we answer this Dawn thing?
Yeah,
That's
I don't
interesting.
understand how people with the internal deal with the internal dissonance of claiming to worship the one creator God and then turning around and claiming that someone could be born in the wrong body.
Well, they can't. They're liars.
Yeah, I mean, what do you mean by believing in creation? Because mouthing the words is really easy, but like, I think even in myself, right? You know, as a part of creation and a part as the fundamental doctrine of God, you know, you put those two things together, you're going to have to deal with providence at a certain point. And I had to get pretty far into seminary before I started actually taking providence seriously. And that was just probably a part of me being cured of my latent materialism there, which snuck into me from who knows where, you know, probably all those science fiction books I was reading.
I mean, it's much easier to pick up latent materialism than not.
It's a lot simpler than trying to deal with the fact that God is absolutely in charge of everything, but I'm also absolutely responsible for my actions. It's just like,
yep.
Okay.
That's a bit of a mouthful to get your head around.
Yeah. It's I just got to deal with that multi-level causality and realize that at a certain point you're not going to put everything together in a perfect system that people will understand. So yeah, you know, I got providence on my mind because that was the reading of in the traditional Latin Mass today was, you know, observe the lilies in the field. They neither sow nor reap, yet I say to you, Solomon in all his glory is not arrayed in. And so I was ended up preaching on that. It's like, yeah, guys, like really the Lord is in charge here. So just seek first the kingdom and its righteousness, and everything else will be given to you besides.
Yeah.
So
no matter how many times you hear that one, you need to hear it again.
That's why it comes up again and again in the reading cycle. So yeah, that's what we're doing here. Yeah, so that's you know, they haven't made that act of trusting God all the way. And who here has, you know, probably not me either, but you just
it's hard.
You practice
it's really hard to do.
You practice it over and over again until you get good at it, and then you die.
My friend who goes to TLM, apparently her homily today was on the one time that St. Louis of France met Thomas Aquinas.
Oh.
Because it is also the feast of St. Louis, and she's in St. Louis.
Okay, so that would be a solemnity for them. Yep. I'm sorry. A class one feast for them. I got to go back to the old language. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a local celebration.
Yeah.
And that was cool. I didn't know they met. Apparently, Thomas Aquinas spaced out through the entire dinner and then came up with a new thesis against the Manichees in the middle of it.
And he banged his fist against the table and said, "That'll fix the Manicheans." And everybody was quiet. And then King Louis was like, "Go get him a piece of paper. He needs to write this down."
Yeah.
So he understood. He understood exactly how these things work.
How that works.
Yeah. So yeah, that's those two saints. You know, they get each other. They get each other. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, apparently, on Seeing the Splendor of Paris, St. Thomas was like, you know, I'd really prefer to have that lost homily of John Chrysostom. Which is such a mood.
Yeah.
For me, personally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was... He wanted to know things, right? and he wanted them to be known clearly and taught as concisely as he could manage. And it wasn't just theoretical for him, because when people went astray, then bad things happen, right? So yeah, good old Thomas Aquinas. But when he was offered anything at the end of his life, he had that vision of Christ on the cross. He put his knowledge to good use when he said, "Non nisi te, Domine."
Nothing except you.
Yeah, nothing unless it's you.
Unless it's you, Lord. It's acceptable to translate it as acceptable.
Yeah. That's a more poetic translation, though. Nothing unless it's you.
Yeah.
I also like, speaking of saints' quotes and aphorisms in Latin, ite inflammate omnia, which I think was Saint Ignatius. And it's usually translated piously, go set the world on fire, right? But I like to translate it as go burn everything.
Have you seen the chaos manatee memes?
The chaos manatee?
Yeah. There's at least one that's because manatees are kind of calm creatures to look at, but it's like a manatee in an aquarium, and it's captioned, "Set it all on fire, child."
No, I've missed that one.
Someone I knew in college was obsessed with them, but they were 10-year-old memes at that point. So
good old 10-year-old memes, it's an older meme, but it checks out.
Yeah.
So I never got to finish where I started on classical education.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the young people were given the building blocks with the, grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and the mathematics, geometry, astronomy, and music. And then they would, I think they would also be getting an awful lot of literature, what we would call literature now. Stories.
Grammar is as much stories as it is what we think of as grammar. The grammar phase, you learned a lot of it by reading and memorizing poetry and literature.
Mm-hmm. And those are what I think did a lot more to shape people's souls, to be able to appreciate the good, And I'll tell you something. I went to a symphony this summer, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, which is and I just have to take it on faith that it's as good as everybody says it, because I don't have the palate developed to be able to appreciate that well. And I'm trying. There were parts of it where I was tuned in. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. But probably 80% of it, I was kind of tuned out. And it's just
I think Beethoven in particular, or at least because I also am not as developed, but I've been informed by, music studying friends that Beethoven in particular, you really need to have the tradition that comes before him. You need to understand it in order to appreciate and know what he's doing. Because he's just doing so much and changing stuff.
And I just not there yet, So it's not like I regretted going to the concert or anything like that, even though the parking there was horrible and it took us half an hour to get out of the parking lot.
Oof.
Afterwards. But yeah, it's you can't just assume that people are going to be, you could just plop anybody down in front of the orchestra and expect them to really understand why this is significant or meaningful. I don't. I grew up with this. Beethoven was a part of my culture in Boston. I don't feel lucky. It's
awesome.
Yeah, I got to go see it, and it was a blessing to be able to go see it. But I don't. I have to put a little extra work into cultivating appreciation for things that Some people were given when they were growing up.
What about the sixth?
I
I can't imagine a world where somebody listens to Beethoven's Sixth and isn't instantly smitten. But
okay, maybe I got to try the sixth one out then. Because
try the sixth.
is that the Pastoral Symphony?
Pastoral, yeah. The Blue Label
see,
recording is the best one.
My one hook into the world of classical music is Fantasia.
Oh yeah.
Because my mom would put like if she needed us to take a nap, she would put that on, and I would never actually nap. I have a hard time napping to this day. I'm not much of a napper, so I would just sit there and watch it. Like, hey, TV's on, and so like, yeah, Toccata and Fugue in B minor. I've got that one down cold. Excerpts from the Rite of Spring by Stravinsky. I love that.
Yeah, I liked that one.
And yeah, the Pastoral Symphony and the Dance of the Hours and Night on Bald Mountain. Like I got those ones down cold.
Symphony the one with the like centaurs and nymphs dancing together?
Yep.
With Silenus.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, Straczynski, like the Firebird in particular, but like Rimsky-Korsakov, Scheherazade, oh, amazing.
I need to listen to those. I need to work on my classical
Vivaldi's Four Seasons, although one of them's better than the other three. Whatever.
Winter's the best, right?
Huh?
Winter's the best, right?
Oh no, I think spring is the best.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's why you live in South Carolina and I live in North Dakota.
There you go.
I actually can't differentiate them really well. Like I've listened to all of them a bunch of times, but I lose track of which one is which.
Well, and there are crazy people who think like Beethoven's Third is any good, and I'm like, really? Eroica? I mean, really? No, it's the fifth, the sixth, and the ninth. The rest can be dispensed with. It'll be fine. You won't miss anything. I saw Beethoven's Sixth performed by Keith Lockhart, who was the Boston Pops conductor at the time. I don't know if I think he's still the Pops conductor. He did it in Jordan Hall, which is the hall for Northeastern University, if I remember correctly. And they only screwed up one part, which of course greatly bothered me because I'm that way about these things. Like I said, the blue recording, please. Thank you very much. But it was quite a nice experience. Also free tickets, which is nuts. Boston is crazy. Just the free stuff, and they used to like the museums back when I was living up there. Especially when I was younger, the museums almost all had free days at some point.
How very Yankee.
You could just go to the museum for free. Well, it's very European because in Europe, almost all the museums are free. Like, hey, to go into a museum, they're all like, what is this weirdness? But yeah, and Boston has fantastic museums, especially the Isabella Stewart Gardner, which would be free on
every that one is spectacular.
Best museum ever. That one. Best museum ever, and it's right across the street, basically from the, from the big museum, right? The big arts museum.
But the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum is better.
Way better. It's so much better.
Now,
there's a reason that's always where we went on field trips.
Mark, do you get the sense that you were formed to appreciate classical music, or is this just another case where we should just expect you to be the outlier and not worry about it?
I mean, I don't. There's two problems, right? Problem number one is, growing up is before time, and I just don't have a lot of good, coherent, long-term memories of before time at all, right? Like any time before I was, say 20 or something is just hit or miss because of the living on the streets in the winter in Boston thing, and don't live in your car in the winter in Boston. It's not recommended. Don't do it. And the other thing was I what do you mean by formed? Like, yeah, I mean, my parents played classical music sometimes, but I would argue only the good stuff, and I do know the difference, right? Like I do, like, there's classical music that I'm like, well, like I said, like Beethoven's great, the fifth, the sixth, and the ninth. And the rest of it, if I never heard another piece that wasn't those three for the rest of my life, I'm cool. It's all good. I don't think I'm missing a damn thing. And I could be wrong about that, of course, but like, I mean, this is the way I feel about it. And the way, like you kind of inherit the choices of your parents in things like that to some extent, not only them, obviously, but also them. And you can reject those choices. You can reject your inheritance, right? And sometimes maybe you should, although almost never would be my argument there. That's just my personal opinion on that. But my parents seem to have had a refined, wherever they got it from, I don't know, idea of these things. So that was helpful for me. So I assume that it was formed.
Yeah, because I was not formed in that way. It was mostly just like, classic rock that we grew up listening to. And I feel like the kind of the median human being, if you don't educate them into appreciating certain things, they're going to go be straight led by their passions, and by their environment, just to whatever's easy and convenient to understand. Because that's a good definition of high art. Is it takes more out of you to be able to appreciate it, but it can do so much more than regular pop or folk art.
Well, I want to, just before I welcome Sam in here, because I think we should, and I apologize, Sam, I just want to hijack one real quick thing, because you just helped me to see something, Father, that I want to highlight before I forget. Passion plus environment, right? So if you think about not being formed, and you think about the idea that if you're not formed or formed sufficiently, we'll say, just so we can, dispense with the fact that you're formed to some extent, against your will or whatever, as a result of having been a child and not been alone in the woods.
Or if you're not formed intentionally.
Right. I mean, you're formed intentionally, right, by your environment, whether there's an intent, a specific intent or not, right? The formation happens, right? Then you're going to be ruled by your passion or your environment. Now just take a moment, stop, look around, and see what's going on in the world, and tell me if you see a correlation in that theory. Hey, Sam. It's good to meet you.
Hey, Sam.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Father.
Hello.
And hi,
I'm
Emma.
kind of curious. Did you grow up listening to classical music in your household? I'm taking polls now.
I did not. My father is probably about 40% deaf, and he did not like to listen to basically any music, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean that certainly has an effect on that. Yeah, I don't know. But sometimes I hear, like stories of people. They're like 7, and they listen to some piece of classical music, but the stories I hear are usually like, I went and put on this record that my parents have, and I fell in love with it. Yeah. So anyway, that kind of education is important. I don't want to sound like I'm dogging on my parents here too much. Like I got a lot of really good formation, and I'm very grateful for the formation that I did get. This is one of the things that they didn't get around to.
Mm-hmm.
Or they didn't. I mean, I don't think everybody needs formation in everything. Like if you don't listen to classical music, you'll be fine. Like nothing bad's gonna happen to you.
Right, and I really took to Gregorian chant when I got to seminary, and it's like that's older than classical music, and classical music came from somewhere, and like choral music. I do like choral music a lot, mostly because I did it when I was in high school and college, and so I could just kind of hear what's going on. I also do enjoy me a little bit of barbershop. Haven't done that in a while, but.
Are you a musical theater appreciator?
Yeah, but sometimes I feel bad about it. Some of it's like, man. So when I was a deacon I was a transitional deacon. I had a year in a parish in a small town in North Dakota, and this was just before COVID hit. We put on a review, a musical review of just because we didn't have the capacity to do like a full show, so we were just going to put some songs on, and the director's husband like tried to stitch it all together in a ridiculous plot, and it was just a good time, right? It was just a good time. I remember we did a song from Wicked,
Ooh.
and it was One Short Day. I'd never seen Wicked, but when you're doing the practicing, you listen to the original cast recording, right? And I remember listening to the hyper expressive and like really girly, production that these Broadway singers were having, and it's like, I hate that I like this. I really hate that I like this. Like we're getting really close to like being a little bit too into anime, and having like a waifu graphics card on my computer or something like that. It's like we're going in that direction. So
Wicked is also a very specific era of musical theater, I feel like.
It was the 90s, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's just there's a whole group of musicals that all have very similar vibes and were just wildly popular in the 90s and 2000s. And
like Rent, Cats, Wicked.
Yeah, things like that. Some of the Disney adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the Disney adaptations. I watched Hunchback of Notre Dame, the musical. My siblings' high school did it, and that was really cool because the musical dramatically improves on the Disney movie by going back to the book.
So it has did they make Frollo into a priest?
They did make Frollo into a priest. They also made him into a compelling, conflicted character rather than the most evil guy to ever evil.
I don't know. I think Hellfire was a conflicted song.
It is a conflicted song, which is why it makes no sense for the Disney character.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that movie in years. It's just every once in a while I'm like, Hellfire's a good song. I mean, it's not a good song. I watched it for the first time
after seeing the musical, and I was really disappointed.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, it's like, yeah. They would have an opportunity to improve and change things. When they go and put it onto the stage.
And they had more than 90 minutes to work with, and they could include the complicated backstory of Quasimodo actually being Frollo's nephew.
Oh, okay.
Not just some kid.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, if I guess that's a good sign for me that if I ever have an opportunity, I can should go check that one out.
Yeah,
it's worth it. I don't know. The trouble with me going to theater is I always feel like I should be up on stage. Which is just maybe an instinct for participation, but it's like, yeah, I could do that, Whereas the singing's fine, but I can't dance to save my life. That's why I became a priest.
We need priests who can sing.
It's not the whole reason, Mark. You're right, but it gives me a great excuse for not dancing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have such a good voice, Father. That's
this weekend. That was fun.
What did you do this weekend, Emma? I didn't hear that.
Oh, I did Greek folk dancing. Because I threw a party for a start of the semester party for all the grad students now that we have a backyard that we can invite everybody to. And 5 or 6 of them are Greeks, like from Greece.
Wow.
So about towards the end of the night, it turned into like teach everybody Greek folk dancing, which was awesome.
That's cool. That's awesome. I don't know any Greek folk dancing, unfortunately.
Thanks, Sam.
Not even sure what that would end up looking like. Are you
Well,
sorry?
having
So
your own
Emma, we
space
talked
is
about
the
school
best
starting
part.
next.
Tomorrow. Sorry, Sam. What was that?
No, that's fine. I was just saying having your own space is a real blessing.
It
Not
is,
having to
and
worry
I'm
about
trying to
people
share
not
it with the community and not just keep it for myself.
Yay.
Yeah. Well, it's it's a bit of a lost art, the art of the house party, right? And
It is.
I think J.D. Flynn wrote about this in the Pillar Catholic newsletter recently, about like the best thing that you could do in a house party is to get people who don't know each other yet, but will really get along, and then just being able to like expertly set the stage where you could get people to become really good friends in that situation. That's what he says is like the very essence of a house party is to be able to not just have your friends over, but to like really set the stage. And he says it's not like easy and not anybody can just go and do it. They have to like
No, it's not easy.
practice doing it. And it's more than just the specifics of, cooking and cleaning and setting those things up, but like hosting is important work. And it's you really got to put the work into it. So I'm glad that you're putting the work into it. And yeah.
I'm trying. See how it all goes. But
My parents were always really good at that, so I just got to watch them and learn from them.
Yeah.
my
Do you enjoy hosting?
Colin is better at it than I am. I enjoy it okay. I do get overwhelmed pretty quickly with like talking to different people and trying to like balance things and all of that. And trying to introduce people to each other. But Colin is really good at it. So
well, he's rather extroverted, and he probably also had some good exemplification.
Yeah, his mom is also very good at it.
Yeah. So that really does make a difference.
You're a good host.
Oh, thank you.
We're complimenting you, Colin.
Oh, thank you. Mom did teach me how to host.
She did.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but I trust Emma.
Yeah, Colin's very, very outgoing and definitely will say doesn't have the social anxiety because he seems to know what to pay attention to in people. Unlike you and I, Emma, who just get overwhelmed when there's more than a person near us.
Yeah.
Admittedly, the main thing. Oh, by the way,
things.
The main thing I'd say is when it comes, I always stick to. I think it was Jordan Peterson that mentioned this. That if you're having social anxiety, just focus on the other person. Because there's many social situations where I do have a lot of anxiety, but hosting is one of them where I can just like, okay, I have a job, I know I'm doing this, is how I can help that person. It's the best thing is when you have someone else that you can tell is socially anxious because you can start focusing on them instead and being like, okay, make sure you feel welcome and so on and so forth. And then your anxiety goes away because you're focusing on them unless you become anxious about them, in which case, not as helpful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, didn't Dr. Peterson himself say that like anxiety and self-awareness are basically the same thing?
Yeah,
I can see that.
he's been on a string of that lately, I feel like.
Huh.
Maybe not super lately, but
Well, I've been up to date.
it's a like past couple years development as opposed to a original Peterson TM.
Yeah.
Peterson Wave 1, Peterson Wave 2. It's more of a Peterson Wave 3 thing. Is that what we're saying, Emma?
I've just only heard him talking about it in interviews for the past couple years as opposed to like
Yeah.
his really old class videos or
Fuzzy Sweater
Those are fun to
Peterson.
watch.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah,
or the like original lectures or anything.
right. Yeah. It's not in the original lectures. I agree. It's definitely more, and it's an afterthought, right? Because it's one of those things all psychologists probably know, right, or learn early on, and he just thought to mention
I
it.
don't know, Colin. Do you think people usually learn that in a psychology degree?
No, that's psychology, not counseling. I only got so much experience.
That's true. But it seems like something like that would be really important to trickle down to the practical side.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the issues with counseling is we're not psychology. We have a practical focus on things. The theory as to why things work, we get a pretty good understanding of, but you can very much tell that it's more of a someone else thought this through and gave it to us, not a we thought that like
It's training versus education again.
exactly.
Mhm.
Like I like the Gestalt here and now. At least I think that's what Gestalt is. That he is a good example. And I would argue that that's essentially what we're talking about when I'm thinking about it. The idea of being very much in the present, focusing on what's rather than trying to like think about what does that person think this about me? Or does that person, you're in yourself, you're in the moment, you're not kind of letting yourself kind of hyper analyze. But like I never exactly thought of it in those terms. It's more of just like I know this is useful and here's why. It's good to be emotionally aware. It's good to not look at the thing. I wouldn't think to myself like, hey, this is probably because awareness and anxiety or self-awareness and anxiety are the same thing. I mean, I have fun trying to write down kooky theories, but that's a different story.
Yeah. Well, I'm just interested as to, it's like, why is it the case that self-awareness and anxiety are so tightly correlated, right? And I guess by the time that you've become uncomfortably aware of your own skin and the sweat pouring out of yourself and wondering what you look like to the other person, you've probably lost the plot a long time ago. And you no longer know what you're doing. And so
Well, you're not paying attention to the right stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Like if you're paying attention to all the little minutia of your body or your thoughts even or whatever, this is why meditation actually makes you worse on average. Then you won't be paying attention to the things that can actually hurt you that are outside of you. Right?
Or the things that could help you. And
the things that could help you. Right. And so you're going to be painfully aware from the wrong direction, from the inside out of the world, instead of being aware from how you fit in the world. So if you're not aware of how you fit in the world, that's the meaning crisis, right? I mean, Vervaeke talks about domicide. That's domicide. Domicide is not being aware how you fit in the world. And his example, even though I don't actually agree with his example, if his example is historically accurate, I don't think it is, but it might be close enough. His example would actually supports that thesis. It doesn't support his vague definition of domicide. It supports the thesis that when you have a world and you don't know what your location is in it, you're in domicide. It has nothing to do about having a house or having a family or any of that, right? It's more fundamental.
And, it doesn't, so that's like big existential anxiety right there, right? The domicide, not having a home. Sometimes it just comes up in like a much smaller scenario where it's like, I don't know these people. I don't know why I'm here. The person who said they were going to meet me here isn't here. And now I don't know how to behave. And that could happen to anybody, even if their whole worldview is generally stable. So it's just like a localized version of domicide, basically.
Well, all anxiety can't be self-awareness, right?
Okay.
Self-awareness may reliably cause anxiety, but most anxiety is just your inability to predict something will cause you anxiety, right? And the problem is if you're focused on something completely foolish, like what did I come up with today?
Climate change. Sorry.
No. I had a way more specific, funny one. It was the it was the socio-economic impact of the war in Ukraine on the population, because there are people that are basically concerned with that, whether they frame it that way or not. Like that can't not cause you anxiety, because unless you're in Ukraine, you don't have access to it. And so any prediction you make about it is likely to be completely wrong, and it's just going to cause you problems. And if you're focused on the wrong things, like it doesn't matter how smart you are or how many IQ points you have or whatever measure of intelligence you want to use, all of which are terrible, by the way. If you're focused in the wrong place, if you're using that facility incorrectly, you're still going to be anxious, right? It's not going to help you.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of maybe a conclusion you could draw from something that Mother Teresa said and something that Adam Smith said, where essentially they both make the same argument that so their point was a little bit different. I'm gonna take it connected to it. Their point was everyone always says, "Oh, I feel so bad for," I don't know, there was an earthquake in India, right? And that's ironic because Mother Teresa. We'll pick Australia even further, and we feel so bad for them and so forth. And to a certain extent, we're using that as an excuse because we can all feel sad about the people way over there that we have absolutely no ability to help, right? And maybe we'll try and put something together, like I sent $5 for earthquake fund. That way we don't have to look at our neighbor, right? We don't have to look at the homeless people in our own city, because now you actually have a chance to help them. And that's way worse, right? Like, oh crap, now I feel responsible. Now I feel that human connection that I had for the Australians, I actually can do something right now. You can apply that to a little bit of what you're saying in the same regard, which is it's maybe not the best. I should look up more news more often, at least be aware of some things. But I've kind of had the opinion that you should be aware of the things you can affect. Because if let's say I'm in Illinois and I'm a little more on the conservative side. I know, very surprising. There's only so much I need to know about politics and the fact of how much I can actually affect, let's say, the presidential election, right? What is my vote going to do in Illinois? Kind of idea. Maybe not the best example, but the whole idea here then is what are my thoughts on like the conflict in Ukraine, what's going on? What would that do to, am I going to like invest heavily in prepper stuff because I'm going to survive? I got myself a little 1022. Am I gonna be able to do? No, that's entirely in God's hands. There's nothing I can do about that. So that's not gonna be my worry.
Yeah.
I mean, I use that to test conspiracy theories, right? And whether or not I should pay any attention to them. It's like, okay, we faked the moon landing. What do I do about that?
Exactly.
It's like, I don't know what to do about that, right? So I guess I just don't care because it has no effect on my day-to-day life, right?
You shouldn't try to care about things you have no effect on, right?
The Vatican
disappointed.
lied about the third secret of Fatima, right? It's like, I guess if I was a cardinal, I could look into that, but like, what would I do? I would just make sure I say the rosary and say my prayers and just try and be a good priest. Oh, geez, I'm already doing that, right? So
a few more years, Father. A few more years. We're working on it.
You and Adam, man, you guys are going to get
you
so much
certainly
trouble.
need that test. Working in just a little bit of working front desk of a Catholic church, you definitely will have people being like, no, I need your help, Father so-and-so, because the world depends on me getting to the contact with the Pope. And you obviously have like that little Batman red phone back in the day, like direct line to the Pope, like, hey.
I don't think you understand how many layers of hierarchy we have.
Had proof that the university was doing some conspiracy
that guy was
and needed to tell the Pope and thought that your church would be the ones to get him in touch with the Pope so that he could tell them the university was like building nukes or hating Catholics or something.
Something like that. I think it's more Illuminati, if I remember correctly, or something like that. New World Order. It's a little bit. It's one of those cases where you laugh at something that's sad because we're a Catholic church that's just across the street from the hospital, and the hospital is crap at like. You technically aren't harming yourself. So you schizophrenic who literally thinks you met Donald Trump yesterday, you're good to go and like find a house. I don't know, do your crap. So every so often you'll have someone walk across the street and be like, "That's a church. That's a Catholic church." The first lady I let into the church accidentally was like, "I need that living bread stuff because I need to like use that to make something." And then also I need to take that to Donald Trump because I met him yesterday and he was talking about it. She was interesting. She's great at poetry. Amazing. She was great at poetry. I had to write down a couple lines that I was waiting for backup. It was pretty good.
Well, yeah, people like that are overconnected or very artistic. And it's interesting because a lot of people have that impression, especially now in the quote age of gnosis, as I like to call it, that if so-and-so just reads this book, like if I just get this book to Jordan Peterson, then he'd, understand this. Right. And they're always, if people just knew that the government was lying about UFOs, and I'm like, I guarantee you it would change nothing at all for anybody on this planet.
Oh
yeah.
No, Epstein's Island just made that clear, where it's like,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah. Well, the other people don't realize, like, I bet you don't know this, Colin, but did you know that I forget how many years ago it was that Al Gore's emails were actually dumped on the internet, like all of them?
Oh no.
Oh yeah. A very long time ago, I read many of them at the time because I was still sort of connected to the hackerish sort of people. And in one of the emails, he's talking to his buddies. I don't remember their names, thank goodness, because what would I ever do about this, right? But they were all wealthy, not super wealthy. They weren't billionaires, but they were tens of millionaires. And he was saying, if we can just get 1% of the $1 trillion energy market, we'll all be all set, sort of a thing. And that was before he wrote his book, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. And people still read the book, right? And then here's another one. So people are still on this climate thing. The scientists that came up with the hockey stick, which by the way is an irreproducible scientific result, hint, it always was. Their emails got dumped. Same thing. I read some of those emails. Like they clearly, it's hard to see unless you're a data scientist. I'm actually, among other things, a data scientist. They clearly manipulated the data, which is why it's an irreproducible result, because what manipulations did you do on this data set? Because when we plug the data set in, it doesn't have a hockey stick at all. Like, I don't know where you got your conclusions from, because we took your data and we get completely different conclusions. We took your model and your data, we get completely different conclusions. Well, yeah, they manipulated the data going into the model because they wanted the hockey stick. And they said this in the emails as clear as day. There's a bunch of emails. It's a bunch of, it didn't change anything. This information, that one, the second one, well, actually, I think both of them were reported on CNN. They weren't hidden in the dark web. Like, wow. They were actually reported. And no, it didn't change anything. Like, these things don't change anything. The age of gnosis is a false impression. People just knew then something would change. Nah.
Man, it's all over the place, too. So I watched the movie Contact last night. 1997, great CG in that one. And I was really glad that the character played by Matthew McConaughey was just an ex-seminarian and not a priest. It's like, yeah, actually, that's pretty accurate for an ex-seminarian right there. That's I'm going to spoil the movie, everybody. Spoilers coming. Sam, are you okay?
Spoilers coming for a movie.
Spoilers coming.
I'm all right.
What's her name? The actress. She meets aliens.
Helen Hunt. Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, and she like goes into the magic machine, the idea of which they stole from Isaac Asimov, the gods themselves, that the Jodie Foster. That's who it
Jodie
was.
Foster.
Jodie Foster. Jodie Foster goes into the big machine and encounters aliens who show up in the form of her father, and she has this big emotional connection. And it's like, this is the way this has been done for billions of years. Is that each, we only ever bring one over, And I just, I found that kind of like it was a fun movie. I don't regret watching it. But it was sort of like, that's all they had was like this knowledge. She comes back to the side with this knowledge of the wormhole network that you can go through, and then you can communicate with all these aliens. And she puts so much hope into that, right?
Mhm.
Just participating in it. And I'm just sitting there like, that really doesn't fix anything. That's like saying that you can solve a meaning crisis by saying, hey, guess what? You could get on an airplane and go to Singapore, and there are other human beings there that you could connect to. That's just, don't have a meaning crisis, right? It's just like you're just scaling it up across the galaxy, but you're not actually like fixing anything there.
Doesn't it do a flip in the movie where they have the footage and they admit that she went somewhere because it's in the evidence is in the footage and they bury it?
So she drops through the wormhole machine, and on the 42 cameras it blips out for a second, and then she just kind of lands there. From their perspective, it was like instantaneous. For her perspective, it was like 18 hours, and she had the headset on with the recording camera. I don't think that technology existed in 1997. I don't think you could get. And they admit that. So the only data they got was static. They didn't get anything useful back.
Right.
But they got 18 hours of static.
Oh,
and they didn't tell anybody. They hid that in the report.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, she gets the knowledge and nobody believes her. But there is a reason to believe her, but that knowledge is hidden. It's a weird flip.
At least the arrival aliens let you see your own future.
Oh yeah, arrival.
What good would that do? Like, this is always the puzzling part to me. So another squishy word, Father, is power. Power is maybe power is squishier than love. Power is a pretty squishy word.
Power to do what exactly?
I think love is still squishier.
It's a toss up for me, Emma, but you might be right.
It's a tough call.
Yeah, power is just used all over the place to mean all kinds of things. And I'm actually Peterson talks about it all the time, but he never points out these guys never actually define power. They just throw the term around like you already know what it means, and then you can project into it. And he doesn't talk about projection either, which is revoke the degree. Projection is like most common psychological phenomena in the world by several orders of magnitude, right? Like,
well, because you have to figure out why people are doing things.
Yeah.
And your closest model you have to that other person that you actually know anything about is this guy. So of course we do that.
You in a narcissistic society and culture like we have in the whole West right now, projection is the norm. Because we think we know things, age of gnosis. We think we know things, and it's like, no, you. I mean, I don't know Sam. He seems like a nice guy, but I don't know. Maybe he's a serial killer. I don't even know Emma, even though I've met Emma. Emma's wonderful, but like, I don't know. I mean, you don't know people that well, right? And there's always more to them, hopefully, and they're always changing, annoyingly enough. And worse yet, so are you.
Oh no. I feel like I'm at my peak right now. I don't want to change.
No, you've got more to go. We gotta get you at least into being a cardinal here, Father. We're working on it.
Oh goodness. Yeah. So anyway, these science fiction movies, the one that did the exact same trick was 2010, the year we made contact. And again, loved that movie, enjoyed the whole thing, great special effects, tight script, interesting characters, the whole lot. They had it all there. But like the solution to like all of humanity's problems comes from encountering aliens. Like that story does nothing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what that changes in the world.
Yeah.
Or
But-
what knowing that a certain politician did a certain thing or didn't do a certain thing, or like all these things. I'm like, I don't get, because people just skip over the action part of this, and they confuse thought and action. And I'm like, you still have to have conflict in the world if you want change.
Yeah. So
And
anyway,
we're very
just
conflict averse.
the hope that certain types put in the possibility. I mean, I get what's driving at it, is that we feel like there should be more personality on a higher level in the universe, right? We intuit that, and there's no space for it in a materialist frame. But if there were extraterrestrial intelligent life that could contact us, they would be higher than us, at least at this point in time, because they're the ones who
Right.
figured out how to do it, right?
Right.
And there's, as far as I can tell, just some pretty insurmountable, engineering difficulties to do that conveniently. Anyway,
When they'd have to condescend to us, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And we wouldn't like that, because no one likes condescension anymore, even though it's a great gift. We see it as a negative. I think we misread condescension and arrogance. We confuse the two.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a fun little movie. I don't know about if it's little; it was 2.5 hours long, but it was a fun
Long.
movie. But yeah, I don't think it's going to fix anything. It's just interesting to see, because a lot of that movie was also like, I don't know if I could have somebody represent the human race who doesn't believe in God. It's like,
That was the fascinating
That
part
aged
about
well.
it. Well,
Well,
and that's a theme in Battlestar Galactica reboot too. That religious, the importance of religion. It's a very religious TV show, actually. It
Yeah.
doesn't try to be, but it ends up being. Babylon 5 is like that too. It just ends up in this, written by an atheist. It's like, really? I don't know, dude. Like, there's an all religion in this.
well, atheists are a very religious type, so
Mm-hmm.
Yep. If you believe you do
Sounds
not
like
have a
Firefly.
religion, one will be provided to you without your knowledge or consent.
Firefly has a lot of that too. It's doing it a little more explicitly.
Yeah,
But-
that's interesting. I should rewatch Firefly. It's been a while, but yeah.
The movie, I can certainly see that in Serenity, like the assassin serial killer guy is
Mhm.
a very religious guy. He's
Yeah.
like,
Right.
oh, I know absolutely that the utopia I'm working towards has no place for a guy like me, but it's still worth it, right? So you've got like this twisted parody of a Christ figure who sacrifices
Mhm.
himself for the world, but does it by just like murdering people and such.
Well, that whole idea of integrating the quote remainder, see the Language Creation Book Club on Navigating Patterns. The whole idea of integrating the remainder in that way, the remainder destroys itself. And it's like, oh, look around at wokeness. Yeah, like, I don't know. Is that your strategy? It's a terrible strategy.
Yeah. It's just fascinating. Just fascinating to watch these people. They just they're the atheist myths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Another good one. This was a book, Isaac Asimov, The End of Eternity. And it's like humanity manages to invent time travel, but the way they do it is basically like an elevator. And you can like get into the elevator, and every floor is going to be a different year, and you can get off of different floors and start manipulating things. And what humanity does is they try and like craft the perfect future for everyone from inside the elevator. So they're like, measuring all these different things. But there's something that nobody ever talks about. It's like sometime in the year 2553 or something like that, they can't get out of the elevator anymore.
Oh,
It's
does the
because
elevator
people-
ever go the other direction?
I can't remember. It's been a while since I've read this one.
Okay.
But that's because the people up there figured out what we were doing and like put a stop to it, you know.
Oh, they blocked the elevator.
They blocked the elevator so we couldn't do any more of the time travel shenanigans. And again, it's like, you know, Isaac Asimov had that flat materialist view of things that was like a hopeful thing to him, that this future humanity would have transcended the machinations, the Yankee impulses of the people in the novel, right? Who we are supposed to be associated with, the narrators and their culture. So, yeah. Oh man,
I've never read any Asimov. I
loved
looked at
him in
his
high school.
writing and
That's what
decided
the Collinses
it was
are doing
unworthy.
too.
What do you think of his writing style, Emma? Have you read him? Like I was
I've
thoroughly
read-
unimpressed. I was like,
I think I've read like one short story by Asimov that I like pulled off of someone's bookshelf one day when I was like 17. So I don't have a good sense of his style or anything.
It's
I'm merciless. I'll read like 2-3 sentences and then decide and throw out all your work, like just like that. I don't even care. Too much stuff to read. Ain't got the time. If you don't catch me, then you're gone. Like I'm just because the reading's too hard for me because I'm fantastically dyslexic. So it takes me forever to read anything.
Which is why I think you're a real trooper for putting up with the Moby Dick book club.
Well, we're reading it nice and slowly. Yeah, I know. I do 2 book clubs at once. It's killing me, but it's worth it. I think.
Language of Creation has a lot fewer words for you to deal with or to look
That's
up.
true. It's not really a book. Language Creation is not really a book. So yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair.
It's a picture book.
Now the trouble with Asimov is that I read him during my materialist phase. And I don't know, like, maybe that's how it got in. You know, like I read Foundation when I was 13 because I heard it was a great work of science fiction, and I had loved Star Trek up to that point. And so maybe that's where all the materialism got in and messed with my imagination. So I don't know what I would think of him now because I've learned how to see through those tricks.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the time travel stuff is usually objective material reality, and then they usually have to subvert it because it never works.
The objective material reality is all over Asimov, right? So the whole premise of the Foundation series is that what is his name? Harlan. I can't remember the main character's name. A really brilliant scientist has done a lot of mathematics in sociology, right? And he's modeling the galactic empire as if it were like gas fields, you know. It says, oh, the galactic empire is going to collapse, and we're going to have 30,000 years of darkness before the galactic empire will be able to reestablish order and harmony in society. And, you know, unfathomable numbers of people will die in this. But if I make the right moves to the starting condition right now, I'll be able to shorten that period from 30,000 years to 5,000 years, and far fewer people will die, right? And so he comes up, he's able to do psychohistory, right? Like, and he's like, he makes a point, you know, and it's like, I didn't have any response to this back then. It's like, you know, you can't really predict the actions of one individual person, but you can predict the actions of entire groups of people, right? Just as like a statistical aggregate. And that seemed really reasonable to me at the time. And that was like the whole basis of his like greatest all-time science fiction work, you know. But he ends up subverting it later on in like Second Foundation, because there's all these psychics in one corner of the galaxy who are just making everybody fit to the plan.
Yeah. Well, it's always a problem though with authors in particular. I know Dawn says she gives an author 25 pages. See, I don't actually do that. I do take some recommendations. So like somebody recommended to me 1 billion years ago, Snow Crash. You got to get past page 60. Otherwise you're not going to get the book. But Snow Crash is an amazing novel. And it's just bonkersly good. You know, it's Snow Crash, Ender's Game. These are really good. I don't care how long
Ender's
it takes you to
Game.
get there.
Ender's Game is good.
Ender's Game is excellent. Snow Crash is also excellent though. Like Snow Crash was really, really good. I don't like any of his other stuff, but Snow Crash.
Is that the train? Does that one involve people stuck on a train, or is that a different snow?
No, that's Snowpiercer. That's terrible.
Okay.
That's bad science fiction. No, Snow Crash. Snow Crash is all about, you know, a future world where it's all it's semi-historically based too. It's like, well, you know, there was this nuclear attack and unknown nuclear Russian attack on the U.S. and the Aleutian Islands, and there's all kinds of wacky repercussions from that. But there's so many pieces in Snow Crash that are like really, really good. And and authors like Werner Vinge, I think he recently passed away, unfortunately, but like he's got his first 2 novels are just fantastic. But some of these other authors, like George R.R. Martin, like I don't know what you guys are reading, but like I read like 4 lines and I went, this guy can't write his way out of a paper bag. I'm done. And then it turns out he also can't write or end a story, and he can't write a good story. His stories are terrible, right? It's a mystery box garbage, like Jar Jar Abrams. It's just terrible. It's just terrible. Like there's nothing good about it. Well, I got that from Nerdrotic. The first time I heard it, I thought I was gonna hurt myself because I was laughing for the next 20 minutes. Like also true, Jar Jar Abrams.
Oof, ouch. But fair.
Right. It's harsh, but fair. Yes.
Yeah, I've never read anything by George R.R. Martin, although apparently he was fundamental in the lore for Elden Ring. So I guess I've watched a good chunk of stuff by him.
Yeah, I mean, video game lore, especially like a Soulsborne game, all of your storyline is just going to be like little hints, you know, and just sort of like vibes. You get a lot of vibes.
It's a lot of vibes.
Well, video games are mystery boxes. That's what they are, or a series of mystery boxes. So that makes perfect sense in that genre. It just doesn't work for a novel.
No, it doesn't work for a novel.
Or a mythos, which I think is more what Martin's trying to write. You know, he's trying to at some level copy Tolkien. It's just
and he just ain't
horrible.
He's just not that good at it.
He doesn't understand any of the base principles, right? His characters are flat. His writing is terrible. His grammar is awful. His sentence structure is puerile. It's just terrible. Like everything about him is just like every bad writing thing is right in his stuff, which is why I don't understand why people read it. I mean, I know why they read it. They read it for the quote ideas, but then his ideas never pan out anyway, and they don't match anything.
When you're not familiar with good literature, mediocre literature, or bad literature is a lot easier to just go with.
Well, I agree with that, Emma, but I think in the age of gnosis, as I like to call it, a lot of people are captured by ideas. You know, myself included.
Oh, there's that too, for sure.
Well, yeah,
but
I mean,
I think we'd be more protected from the like bad ideas if we were more familiar with good versus bad writing. We'd have more of like an immune response.
Maybe if it was formed, because I think the other problem.
Again, we come back to the formation.
Right, because the other problem, and I have a video about this, of course, on my Navigating Pattern channel, right? Like if you tell people the wrong thing about Plato's Cave, and like there are professors telling people things in Plato's Cave that Plato says are wrong in the book, then they get this bad impression, and then they make a crappy movie like The Matrix, which is still one of my favorite movies, ironically, but also fundamentally evil. So, you know, there's always that part.
Trade-offs. There was always a trade-off, you know.
There's always trade-offs. I still
magnificent
love The Matrix.
visuals, utterly quotable, evil. You got to weigh these things in the balance, you know.
Exactly. See, Father, you understand.
A core part of our, I don't know, cultural language.
Yeah.
On the one hand, on the other hand, evil.
Yeah, right. Like who here doesn't know what the term red pill means nowadays?
Right. This is all Matrix. Right.
It's all downhill from the Matrix. You know?
Right.
Getting
Simulation
woke is also
theory.
the same thing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Physics comes up with simulation theory 10 years after the Matrix comes out. Not a coincidence, right? Physicists are easily swayed by stupid ideas.
Again, coming up with a half-baked replacement for God. AI is the exact same impulse.
Yep, exactly. It is because they don't have anything there. They have a God-shaped hole in the world that they have to fill with a God. They don't. If you believe you do not have a religion, one will be provided to you without your knowledge or consent, right? And that's the problem. And so the irony of Plato's cave, of course, is that allegory is explicitly 100% about education and the want of education and exactly zero other things, according to the book. I have it right here. All the references, however, in my video. So there you go. Like, that's what it's about. It's about education. And education in the allegory is unavoidable. Like, no one gets out of the cave. Plato's explicit about this. No one can get out of the cave. It's not possible to get out of the cave.
Not by themselves.
But it can't happen. It can't happen. It's the whole cave is a fantasy. The gods of the city, which are Plato and Glaucon, are the ones saying, if we pluck somebody out and drag them kicking and screaming through the various stages out of the cave. Right? But the point is, there's a hierarchical system, and you're formed in the cave against your will, right? This is back to what you were talking about, earlier on, right? You're formed against your will, period, end of statement. No, you may want enlightenment. You may want to get out of the cave, but you can't. And if somebody tried to drag you there, some higher force, because again, this is all explicit.
Wouldn't appreciate it.
Public, you'd hate it every step of the way, and then you'd be alone outside the cave. And if you tried to go back in, they would kill you. I don't even think it's they'd try to kill you. I think it's actually they would kill you, although it probably depends on which translation. Like, is that what you want? And then that mirrors the end of book 7, whose point is we have to take the true philosophers, not the sophists, because they're the worst scum of the earth, according to Plato and Socrates. We have to take one of the true philosophers away from their pursuit of the good as such, even though that's not good for them personally, because everything in the Republic is for the city. He says that over and over and over again to Glaucon. I keep screwing it up. And they're going to go down to the bottom layer of the city. Does this sound like the cave at all? Right? They're going to go down to the bottom layer of the city, and they're going to look around and surveil and suggest and possibly make improvements. And the people at the bottom layer of the city are going to get pissed off and throw rotten fruit at them for it. They can't expect any accolades for doing the good at the bottom layer of the city at the cost of their own personal pursuit of the good. That's really the point of the allegory of the cave, is to show that difference between the individual perspective, right, and the perspective of what's in and what's good for the city.
Come down from the upper classes to mend your rotten ways. It's Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull. It's kind of a depressing song, actually. Don't listen to it, but it's got some good licks.
Jethro Tull's depressing, all of it, isn't it?
Yeah, most of it. Solid most of it. I mean, Songs from the Wood is actually pretty uplifting, I think. So the whole album, it ends with Fire at Midnight, which is just like an anti-domicide song. I believe in fire at midnight. It was actually kind of a little soothing, right? And it's the last note of the album. So anyway, but nobody listens to Songs from the Wood because they're all listening to Aqualung. Anyway. And that's what I know about that.
That's good, Father. I like it. That's your musical heritage right there, not the Beethoven stuff.
Well, and the thing is my dad didn't even give me songs from the wood, you know? I had to find that one on my own.
Yeah, but you did because of the things he gave you.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
I found, you know, let's say newer classical music that I liked later in life. So
Yeah, that's kind of the end of the story. Is I'm just forcing myself to drive around town listening to the classical music station, and I think if I do that long enough, I'll just like it eventually, just by
Maybe.
exposure. Well, it's sort of like, you know, did you really enjoy your first beer, or did you have to have like 3 or 4 of them before you started enjoying it?
it's a good sign that it's not a good thing. I'd say this with coffee all the time.
Yeah.
I think I've met one person ever who claims, and I think they're probably lying, that they liked coffee the first time they drank it. Because I'm an anti-coffee person and I don't drink alcohol. So I'm just like, yeah, that's because coffee's bad for you. And that was your body telling you that, and you ignoring it and overriding it.
But you could also do this with things that are good for you.
I
Right?
guess.
You could do it. You could do it with Beethoven.
Night, Sam. Good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you could do it with Beethoven, I think, as well. That's
maybe
what I think.
I think you get in a nice Epsom salt bath and just listen to Beethoven at the same time, and you'll get it all. Oh, see, Sam agrees with me about coffee. Coffee is no good for you. It's caffeine. Caffeine is not necessarily bad. There's other stuff in coffee that just screws you up. I'm telling you. But my thesis for years, decades, not good.
Whew. Well, I guess I'll die then.
Take what is that? One of them energy drinks. I can't remember the name.
Let's say coffee's been baptized. Have energy drinks been baptized? I don't think so.
Coffee's been baptized?
So here's the story. It was the early 17th century, and global trade is really starting to get going, right? And there's this new drink going around Rome, made from these beans imported from the other side of the Mediterranean or whatever. And of course, it's a big question as to whether or not Christians should be drinking this stuff. And I think it was like a really sweet, thick coffee that they served to the Pope. And the Pope takes a few sips of it, and he says, "This is it would be a shame to let the heathen enjoy this all by themselves. So we should be allowed to it." And so at that point, it's like, okay, the Pope says that coffee's okay, then that means we can drink it. So, they also smoke a lot more in Europe. So, you tell me what that means.
That's true.
It means all that things come out of Europe.
Apparently, St. Paul VI was a bit of a chain smoker.
I had a canon law brain teaser for you, Father Eric. If you would like it, or are willing to hear it.
You've got me intrigued now.
So I'm pretty sure there are surgeries that they do on unborn babies where they take them out, do surgery on them, and put them back in. And my question is, are they eligible for baptism at that point? And should they be baptized?
Yes and yes.
Wait for them to be born later?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
I don't think it's really that complicated. It's like, if you can get water on their head, you can baptize them. And if they're in a position where they need to do prenatal surgery, they're probably in danger of death. So you should baptize them.
Okay.
Sounds good. Ted.
Hey, Ted.
How you doing, man?
It's been a long time.
Been too long.
Well, in the middle of the summer, it was a lot of me thinking, I'm going to get on and talk to Peterson, realizing he was in the wrong time zone and having his German punctuality ending the live stream like 14 seconds before I try to get on. So
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's just the Midlander way, Ted.
I know. So I'll be engulfed in warmth sometimes.
You're sounding kind of watery right now.
Yeah, your
Yeah,
mic cuts
you
in
go
and
back
out.
and forth between being clear and like very crunchy.
Oh, that's what people tell me all the time. I gotta come back and forth between being clear and crunchy.
Now you're clear. You were crunchy, crunchy, crunchy. Clear and crunchy was clear.
You know, I think the longer you talk, the clearer you get. So just talk uninterrupted for the next 13 minutes.
Yes, please, please.
I think your AirPods need
Oh my
to
goodness.
like StreamYard and your AirPods need to adjust to your voice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
probably.
once they tune into that, it works. But the first like 30 seconds, they're too faint.
Maybe.
Trying to filter out some of the background noise, like a dishwasher or something. Yeah. Yeah. No, it has been a little while. I've kept trying to hop on with you guys, and yeah, just funny little things have prevented it. So, yeah, I've been in like a little bit different waters recently, and so it's too bad that, yeah, as Father, as you said, that you're going to punctually be getting off in 13 minutes. But yeah, I don't know. I just got the tail end. It sounds like Emma was asking about whether or not you should baptize prenatal babies, which is, yeah. I'm glad that it said yes. Get it done. Yeah, what I don't even know.
I think that's an easy question.
Interesting.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, here's one that's interesting. Can you have patience if you're not paying attention?
Mm.
Oh wow. Damn it, Ted.
Probably
I've
not.
missed you so much, man. Such a good question.
So
That's not really having
let's
patience. That's distracting. That's being distracted.
let's make sure that we're talking about the same thing, right? There's something that would ordinarily irritate you, but if you're not paying attention to it and it's present, is that actually patience?
Mm.
Yeah, I'm gonna come down on the side of no.
It depends on how it is that you're not paying attention to it.
No, well, patience has to be intentional, and therefore you have to know about it.
Right.
That's how I would square the circle.
let's imagine, let's say a father with 4 small children, right? And potentially more.
Really?
We're up to 5. Up to 5.
Oh, 5.
Congratulations, Ted.
Congratulations.
Beautiful. Yeah, she's a beautiful child.
And you know, it's just like at first, you know, you loved your child, you know, and then the screaming got old, right? And you decided, you know what, you know, I brought this child into this world. I spend plenty of time at home. I'm just going to put up with it. And so you get to the point where you're just like intentionally saying, I'm going to put up with it. I'm going to put up with it. This is worth it. This is worth it. Until you get to the point where it doesn't bother you and you don't really notice. It's just like, oh, okay, there's just a problem over here. Somebody needs to go take care of it. And that's all that registers to you. I would say at that point, you've developed some kind of a virtue because you've been handling this irritation virtuously. Whether or not that virtue is actually patience, or is it some other virtue?
I would think that patience is the thing that gets you there, because there's another option, which is that if you have a bunch of screaming kids, is that you just, you know, you put these in and you put something right here, and then they don't bother you anymore. It's like that's not patience. Which is why I think that pain is the thing that principally requires patience, because pain has such a good way of grabbing your attention in a way that almost anything else doesn't.
The patience is a part of fortitude. So
yeah. And so, well, that's great, Father, because then you think about, well, what happens when you craft a society where nobody has to pay attention to things that wouldn't
cause
be
them
taken from them?
any discomfort.
then you've got a bunch of Humpty Dumptys running around.
Well, and you have a bunch of projection on the part of a bunch of people saying, "Oh, they're really patient," and it's like, no, they're not. They're not even aware.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to that thing that I love, and it's hilarious that I'm like, when was the last time I talked about T.S. Eliot's Four Quartets? I know last time I talked about T.S. Eliot, and this was this week, but it's been a little while. But that part at the end of the Four Quartets where he talks about these two things that, like, the hedge covered in frost and the hedge blooming in spring, where it's like, there's two things that look very much alike, but like ontologically, they're completely different. And so being strung out and being patient might appear to be similar, but morally, actually complete opposites. There, you couldn't. There's far apart as life and death.
Yeah, and it's it really does matter what it is you're putting up with, right? So when I'm flying, if they put one of those movie screens in front of me, I'm going to catch up with an action movie that I haven't seen yet, just because flying is so unpleasant. So I'm packed in next to other people. Maybe the rest of you aren't because you're just more compact. And
It is
I'm
a
flying.
benefit.
I'm flying out of
Right,
Fargo,
fine.
which means I always have to fly twice. I can't ever unless I'm getting one of those Allegiant flights straight to Florida. I never get straight to where I'm going. All of that to say, I don't like flying, and I distract myself from it by watching, Mission Impossible or something like that. But exteriorly, I'd probably look very patient. I'm just blankly staring at the screen. I'm not manifesting traditional signs of impatience, right? But it's more of a sedative that I'm giving myself. And given the circumstances, I think it's fine. It's not going to.
Sometimes it's worth it.
Sometimes it's worth
Not
it.
everything has to be an opportunity to cultivate virtue.
Yeah,
Right.
but I think especially with screaming children, I was like, well, you know how you got there, and they're your responsibility now.
Well, and I think too, I mean, a lot of people, I know Don made an interesting comment there. I think a lot of people, again, get stuck in this sort of binary thinking where it's like, just because you're not paying attention doesn't mean you did that deliberately. Like most of the things in existence you aren't paying attention to, and you don't even know about that, right? Because we're primarily, and no one talks about this, and these damn psychologists, intellectually dishonest, almost all of them. Like you're a filtering machine. Vervaeke does a good job of talking about this actually. So you filter out 99.9% of everything in the world. And that's how you get to see anything in the world is all the filtering you're doing. But you're not paying attention.
Sometimes even the amount you don't filter is too much to be paying attention to.
Like when you're around people, Emma. I mean,
Yeah.
you too. That's why I know exactly how you feel.
And they're all having different conversations, and you can kind of hear all of them, which means you can't really pay attention to any.
Don't do that. Well, I can, but yeah, don't do that. But no, it's worse, right? Because even if you're around just one person, but there are other people around, you try to pay attention to too many aspects of that one person instead of being with them or in the fullest way or something. Yeah. Or maybe you're a crazy person, and for some reason, after you did your chainsawing of the day, you fell asleep while you were trying to catch up on your book club book, and then you were actually in the live stream listening to other people while catching up on your reading. Not that ever happened. Just
you were cutting down trees on the Sabbath.
I was. Well, I was outside working, and then everything that I was trying to work on failed for one reason. Like I ran out of string for my.
That's what you get for working on the Sabbath.
So whatever. And then I was like, well, you know what? It's not too hot out, and the chainsaw is ready to rock. So I got all these cuts ready to go because I had everything set up. Everything was ready. These things just need to be cut in half so I can move them. So I grabbed the chainsaw and I made short work of a bunch of stuff, and now I'm super happy. I'm also back. Like my chainsaw skills are now here, just in time because the tree's finished and it doesn't need much more cutting. But whatever. Like my chainsaw skills are back, and now I'm not going to use them again. Yay!
When you're talking about fatherhood, I've spoken to Chronicles of Narnia with children that are actually almost on the scene. And we just finished the line of what's in the wardrobe, and that when Aslan and the girls show up after his resurrection, they show up at the White Witch's castle, and they bring all the statues back to life. And then they're like getting everyone, all these restored creatures, arrayed to go, meet the queen in combat. And so he's like, Aslan's saying, oh, you centaurs go over here, and the panthers here, and this. And he says, and you stay up here with us lions. And the other lion, the formerly petrified lion, is like running around. Like, that's what I love about Aslan. No standoffishness. Me and him. Aslan. He's such a buddy. Like me and us lions. That means him and me.
Hear what he said?
And then yeah, exactly. And then he says, and then it says that at that point, Aslan loaded him down with, it's like 3 dwarves, a satyr, and 2 hedgehogs, and that steadied him a bit. So, in my ongoing theory that the Chronicles of Narnia is just allegory strung together with small bits of narrative, I was like, oh, like that's what it's like to be a father. I was like, you're like, oh, I'm a father, like God the Father, and like I'm in charge of a household and all these things. It's like, here you go. It's like, okay, I've been steadied a little bit.
You are now responsible for a small creature that is utterly dependent on you for its every physical need.
And also utterly chaotic.
And also
we were talking about that earlier. Yeah, my realization that children are proof that God doesn't exist, because how could anyone create such a chaotic little creature and then have it develop into something perfectly capable of being an adult? It's impossible.
This is so funny to me when when Peterson is sort of in his like peak with like Jungian interpretation of stuff, and this stuff about like the connection between women and chaos, and like people would take offense to that. I'm like, do you know what is the most unpredictable thing possible? Is the introduction of a new human into the world. Like,
yeah.
Women are the sea of chaos from which like these unknown new beings come forth, and it's like there's actually nothing that you can do in this world that has as much potency and as like little creative outcome from the get-go as like bringing forth another human.
Well, people also make the mistake of like chaos equals evil.
Right.
When they take offense to that, and that's not what he means by it. He's working with a different understanding.
It's the same as potentiality and actuality.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just another way of talking about Aristotle.
Maybe he should call it that instead of chaos, and then people would get less confused and not think he hates women.
There's no order without
Aristotle
chaos.
And women is a little touchy of the subject. So.
But you got to have somewhere to get the order from and to add to the order.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people also associate entropy with chaos or something. And it's not, yeah. Well, and even the good physicists will admit that they don't have a good definition of entropy anyway. So it's just, but yeah, chaos and order is actually a better way to understand physics even.
Yeah, right. I mean, isn't entropy like everything which brings the universe closer to its heat death? It's basically the way people tend to use it.
No, that's only one use. This is what I mean. Like the physicists don't use it consistently. They basically use it but basically I've said this before, like I don't know what the difference between entropy and time is. That's really the problem, because that's really what physicists are talking about, is the way we measure time is by change. And one of the changes that we measure is the change that happens to order that we don't understand, where there's somehow less of it. And but the problem is that if you play that through, even in physics, and they do this all the time, and it confuses the hell out of them. You can do it on a computer. You do it with computer systems, like actual functioning systems like YouTube. What happens is as entropy sort of, quote, increases in a system over time because it's not being maintained, new order actually appears and efficiencies happen randomly, seemingly randomly, which is an indicator that the world is a self-sum or fractal. And then the cycle starts again, right? And so it's not like you only move towards disorder with entropy. But some physicists use it that way, and some physicists use it, there's like 3 or 4 different ways that use entropy. But that's the problem, is it's just this very ill-defined thing, ultimately.
There's weird things in which, like, you can have again, like I've also heard it described as something like a decrease in total potential energy. And so you have these systems where it's like, pouring the milk into the coffee, where it's like the milk and the coffee are very ordered. Like it depends when you talk about order and chaos in entropy, it depends on the matter of the scale that you're looking at, right? So it's like milk and coffee, right? Not mixed makes sense. Milk and coffee fully mixed together also makes sense. Very describable at a human level, right? It's milky coffee. That has a higher entropy than the milk and coffee swirling together, which is incredibly hard to describe, right? But you're still moving through states of increasing entropy when you have your separated things, you mix them together, and then when they reach that homogeneous state. But in terms of being able to describe it at the scale that's intelligible, there's these like peaks on either side. So there's these weird things about like which one's more ordered.
You add entropy, right? You have 2 separate things, and you combine them, and then you add additional entropy in the stirring, and then you get a new ordered thing. And so the entropy does not only increase even in physics. And this is another one of those confusing things about it.
Yeah. So all that to say, I don't know, but certainly, I think that the sort of what's interesting about chaos, because chaos has a lot to do with intelligibility, and when you feel things that aren't intelligible to you is generally when you have a fundamental distrust to the order of creation, right? And so the maligning of chaos as such has more to do with the way that your person views the fundamental structure of reality than it has to do with what that chaos means. Because, like, by definition, chaos, you can't know what it means. And so it's like, what do you think is behind it? And so when you say, oh, chaos is evil as such, right? You're basically saying, like, I fundamentally mistrust reality.
That's creation denial, right? Right, because this is the same problem that we're having with the language of creation, and people either saying there's no remainder or there shouldn't be a remainder. And I'm like, no, the point of the book is there's always a remainder, right? Because it's not a remainder. It's a remainder with respect to the ordered system. But it's all part of creation. And so if you don't deny creation, you don't think any parts of creation are actually by themselves evil. There may be combinations of creation or actions within creation that are evil, but there's nothing that is created evil. And that's actually the problem that guys like Alex O'Connor have and understand. Well, if God made the snake evil, and it's like, oh my God, I should have a commentary video on that, by the way, on navigating patterns, just saying. Right, it's like, oh my goodness, if you just don't understand creation. Like, creation includes all of the potentials and all of the ordered actuals, and that kind of resolves it nicely for you. But Father Eric's going to fall asleep on us, so we should do a talk soon on this. This would be fun.
Yes, indeed. My potential for staying awake is dwindling quickly. The actuality of the chaos of night is upon us. But we had a good conversation in the meantime, and I think that's good enough. So, good night, and God bless you.
A 3-minute extension from a German Midwestern Roman Catholic priest is the equivalent to like an undying avowal of friendship. So, thank you, Father. I feel it. I feel the 3 minutes deeply.
Okay. Good night, and God bless.
Good night.
Good night.